at what the Lord has done. So many reasons to lift up Jesus.
This is Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard from the Christian Culture Center, and I want to welcome you to today's message. Wherever you're listening from, at home, in the car, or on the move, I believe this message is going to challenge, inspire, and help you grow. Now let's get into today's message. What's our theme today? This year, CCC? Come on, what's our theme, CCC? Amen, amen. And Dr. Bernard has been talking about the necessity of courage to seize opportunity. So I'm excited to talk about today, and I love because even with the song that they were singing, you look at the fact that how fear is one of the biggest issues that we all deal with. Right? You don't do something because you were afraid to. You don't do something because you're afraid to. They said even public speakers that should be speaking aren't quick to speak because they're afraid to speak. One of the biggest fears of individuals. But today I'm here to tell you that we need to embrace change. And we have to have the courage to embrace change. You know why? Let me tell you why. We need the courage to embrace change. Because when change is necessary, not to change becomes destructive. You've been taught that, but these are certain statements that are bear weight and a necessity for us to repeat it. So turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor. No, you got to say it like that. Say, neighbor. When change is necessary, not to change becomes destructive. So just to reiterate some of the stuff that Dr. Bernard has been talking about, seizing opportunity involves facing fears, embracing change, overcoming self-doubt, and dealing with the risk of failure. All which require a significant amount of bravery and courage. See, seizing opportunities often requires courage due to several reasons, and Dr. Bernard has a list. I'm only going to go over one, which is change. I'll repeat this again. Seizing opportunities often requires courage due to several reasons. And number one is change. Somebody say change. See, because change and uncertainty is a part of seizing opportunity. Seizing opportunity typically brings in change. And with change comes uncertainty. It takes courage to embrace the uncertainty and move forward despite not knowing exactly what lies ahead. But we're not just talking about change, we're talking about good change. Somebody say good change. Good change. See, we're not talking about that change that if we make a change, it'll end up destroying us, but that change that will ultimately elevate us. See, we live life on levels and we arrive at stages, and at each level there's a change needed, a deepening of our maturity, a deepening of our character. See, change is inevitable. Change is inevitable. See, but fear and discomfort can rob us of that change. Embracing change requires, once again, courage, strength, and a willingness to step into the unknown. See, so today we're going to explore the profound courage it takes to embrace change and how it can lead us to growth, resilience, and a deeper sense of purpose. See, growing up, my dad, a.k.a. Dr. Bernard, inculcated the idea of having the courage to embrace change. See, this was important because, once again, when change is necessary, not to change becomes destructive. Once again, when change is necessary, not to change becomes destructive. He taught us things like change is the only constant in life. He taught us things like change is a process, not an event. Change is the essence of maturation. You won't grow unless you're willing to change. You won't change until you know what you're doing is wrong. Change comes either willingly or forcefully by crisis. And all change begins with the decision. And these are the things that we have been brought up with. We've been taught over the years the need for change and understand that change is the only constant in life. And you know, I don't want to get ahead of myself. See, because the reality is for some of us, we fight change because of laziness. For some of us, we fight change because of laziness. Man, that's just too much work. It's easier to remain how I am. And that's why I love what Gloria Gaynor was saying, because she was tapping into my message, and people get mad at where they are, and they want to point to God instead of just pointing to themselves. You are where you are because you're just lazy. You see, and laziness allows an atmosphere to be created for you to deal with the same thing over and over again. Laziness creates an atmosphere where it allows you to put yourself into a place where you become so numb that even hearing the voice of God becomes difficult. For others, it is due to stubbornness. We don't change. I'm set in my ways, and I am comfortable. I am who I am, and I'm not changing for no one. I'm not talking about anybody here in this building or watching on online. But there are individuals that are so stubborn, they do not want to change. And those stubborn individuals are the individuals that tend to be the most negative. Those are the individuals that are so stubborn that they don't change, but are so upset where they are that they tend to be the most negative ones. But for most of us, we fight change because of fear. And the biggest thing we fear is the unknown. Turn to your neighbor. Say, neighbor, don't be scared. I look at some individuals, as they get older, the less inclined they are to embrace change. You know, so much so that they came out with this statement, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Because of how you can tell that they don't want to change. But not here in CCC. We embrace change, amen? Let's go to Numbers chapter 13, verse 27. So we're back, we're here. Moses is with Israel, they're hanging out. I'm a Jamaal. This is Jamaalism. And then we're going to get to verse 27 is where we're going to land, but I got to build up the story. So Moses is hanging out, right? And God is talking to him. Him and God, they talk a lot. So, hey, God, how you doing? I'm doing good. How's everything going with you? We're doing good, you know. I don't know how you talk to God. Some of y'all get super spiritual, but me and God got a base, we started a baseline conversation. Lord, how's everything going, man? Lord, let me ask you a question. Like these are how my conversations. Some of y'all, y'all might be super deep and y'all try to, impress God with these big, major theological terms, and I'm not worried about that. So I'm picturing myself as Moses, because you look at Moses' history, he had a good education. He was educated. He was raised in eloquence and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, sometimes the simplest conversations are the best conversations. So Moses is talking to God, and God said, look, this is the land. We were close. We're right there. I want you to send 12 individuals to go check out the land. I want them to go check out the land, bring back some fruit, just a report on how things are going and stuff like that. So these 12 individuals, they go out there. They go into the land and they checking it out. And it's not a small land, so it's not a quick trip. It's a couple of weeks, a couple of months. These guys are out there, they're observing, taking a report, looking, saying, interesting. Right? And they're getting some details. Oh, that looks good. Oh, ooh, gotta watch out for that one. And they're going through it. And then here it goes at verse 27. They came back. They had a report. They're meeting up with Moses, and he says, and they told him, we came to the land in which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong. See, whenever you start something with however, when you're having a conversation with God and you're saying, God, I need this, God, I need that, but however, see, what you're doing is starting to try to create a situation where you are still able to maintain your comfort. You're trying to sit there and create a parameter on how you want this request to work. You're creating this guideline. So God, this is the guideline. But however, if it can be done like this. So what they're saying is, however, so there's a fear here that has been presented. And what happens is whenever there's a however in your conversation with God, you're starting to see fear creeping up. They said, however, they give the good report, like, look, this land is rich with resources. Milk and honey. Great land. But however, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the Negib, and the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell in the sea and along the Jordan. But Caleb replied, everybody needs a Caleb in their life. Caleb replied, see, you got individuals that you're going to need in your life that are going to say, no, let's look at it from this perspective. Yeah, change can look scary, but let's look at it from this perspective. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it. See, we've been talking about occupying. For we are well able to overcome it. We are able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy is a land that devours its inhabitants. And the reason why I paused there, because you see how the things changed? You see how quickly it went so negative? The first report says, hey, it's a land of milk and honey. That land is prosperous. It's an amazing thing. But then when they get to the next level, start talking to people like, child, let me tell you about this land. It devours its inhabitants. There's some issues, some things going on. And this is how we start psyching ourselves out when it comes to a challenge for you to change, especially when you know that God is asking for this next level of you. This deeper relationship with you and him, when God is asking for you just to change who you are. Because who you are right now cannot handle the blessing that I want to bless you with. So they changed up their story, and we often change out our story like, oh, I can do it. And next thing you know, man, nah, this is crazy. Look at those people. Look at it. You start adding some things to the conversation that wasn't a part of the conversation just to talk you out of where you could have been going. It says, and the people, and all the people that we saw in it of great height. You see the change again? At first it says we saw some individuals, descendants of Anakin. And then we saw the Amorites, and we saw the Jebusites, and we saw all these other individuals. Now they changed their story. Look at the story. He says, all the individuals are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. And we seem to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. You see the change in the conversation? They go from we see some giants to now we see all giants. And what we do for ourselves, we start looking at some of the big issues, and we got some of the small issues, and then we start convincing ourselves that all of the issues are big. And because all the issues are big, this is why I can't change. Because all the issues are big, this is why I don't want to change. Because all the issues, you go from saying some issues, because the reality is there are some issues that are big in our journey for change. So you start saying all the issues. And no matter what, God did not say spy the land because that'll determine if you're going to enter it. He just told him to spy the land. And my belief is, as a strategist, I'm spying the land not because this is going to determine if I enter or not. It's just going to determine how I enter. You see, too often, you think that these conversations are about you saying, okay, am I going to change or not? And the conversations should just be about how you're going to change. Not if you're going to change. How are you going to change? See, a part of embracing change and building the courage to change, first thing we got to do is, number one, acknowledge the fear. With all major change, there is a sense of fear. So we have to acknowledge it. See, courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward in spite of it. Embracing change requires us to acknowledge our fear, doubts, and anxieties. We got to acknowledge them. By recognizing the challenges change can bring, we begin to understand the depth of courage needed to confront them. I'll repeat that again. By recognizing the challenges change can bring, we begin to understand the depth of courage needed to confront them. So number one, acknowledge fear. Number two, trust in the unknown. And this is a big ask. It's a big ask. See, because change often leads us into uncharted territory, where the familiar is left behind and the future is uncertain. It takes a great courage to trust in the unknown, to believe in new opportunities and blessings await us in the other side of change. See, embracing change means having faith in the journey even when the path ahead is unclear. And that's why I was talking to my pops last week, and I was telling him, I said, you started out talking about that courage is a theme for the year, and a part of that is we need the courage to admit the need for God and for others. I said, but Dave, I went a little further back. See, I run down these rabbit holes, and the reality is that we need the courage just to believe in God. And some people are saying, well, Pastor Jamaal, why do we need courage to believe in God? Because we don't have 100% evidence in our capacity to understand who this God is. So there is a sense of the unknown of this God we serve. We don't know him to his fullness. There's a sense of this God who is the breathed life out of nothing. There's a sense of God that we have a limited amount of knowledge. So there's a bunch of unknown about God. So therefore it takes courage to believe in God. See, but the thing about courage, and I was talking to her, I said, courage to me is like faith. It's not illogical. Courage is not unreasonable. See, there's something about courage that has its pinning on some type of evidence of what has happened in the past. And what I love about the belief in this God is that the fact that God will come and make up the difference. So the courage is not just in Jamaal Bernard, but the courage is in the God I serve, because I know that the God I serve is going to make up the difference. So when I step into the unknown, I'm not stepping into the unknown alone. When I'm stepping into an environment that is outside of my comfort zone, I know that I have been equipped and called for a particular job, a particular task, and my change in who I am as an individual is just to equip me to become better at the job and task I've been called to do. See, we can't be satisfied with where we are today, because it'll be difficult for us to embrace a better us tomorrow. I'll say that again. We can't be satisfied and comfortable with who we are today, because it'll be difficult for us to embrace the better us tomorrow. I'll say that one more time for those in the balcony. Maybe you didn't hear me, that we can't be comfortable and satisfied with who we are today, because it'll become difficult for us to embrace the better us tomorrow. So number one, we have to acknowledge the fear. Number 2, we have to trust in the unknown. Number 3, we have to embrace vulnerability. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, courageous change requires vulnerability. See, it means being open to transformation, allowing ourselves to be reshaped by the forces of change. Embracing vulnerability allows us to grow emotionally, spiritually, and mentally as we face the challenges and blessings that change brings into our lives. See, so as we embrace the vulnerability, because remember, God is not committed to the one you pretend to be. And I'll say that again. God is not committed to the one you pretend to be. God's commitment is to who you can be. All you have to do, just make some adjustments. He's not telling you to lose yourself. He's not telling you to just forget all that made you who you are. He's telling you just adjust your perception, adjust your relationship with some of the hurt, adjust your relationship with some of the pain, adjust your relationship with some new information, just some adjustments, and you can become a better you. See, God is a God who's into showing off. And my job for me is to make sure I become the individual that he is willing to show off. See, thank God for the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I can be shown off like Job, but I don't have to go through what Job went through. So God can say, have you seen Jamaal Bernard? And I know that I'm standing in a new covenant because of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, where I'm really untouchable. All right. So number 1, acknowledge this fear, We're all going to deal with it. You know, there's such a bad connotation to fear. But God designed us to have fear. Because fear becomes that checkpoint to catch you from doing something stupid. Remember, I told you there's a thin line between being courageous and being stupid. I got So fear is that checkpoint. Say, whoa. Got my heart racing. Got me clenched up. Got a little nervous. It's okay. But fear is not a place to live. All right. Acknowledge fear. Thank you. Trust in the unknown. Embrace vulnerability. Number 4. Cultivating resilience. Cultivating resilience. And what do I mean by that? Change can test our endurance. See, change can become a magnifier. It magnifies the good aspects of who you are and also the bad aspects of who you are. Change can test our endurance. It can test our resilience. Change can test our adaptability. See, embracing change calls for resilience in the face of adversity. And Dr. Mar has been talking about that. And seizing opportunity, we have to be prepared for adversity.
Thank you for listening to Senior Pastor Jamaal Bernard of Christian Cultural Center. Download the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and visit cccinfo.church for more. We'd love to see you in person. Join us Sundays at 10 a.m. at our Brooklyn or Long Island campuses.